کنفرانس در واشنگتن، قیام ایران در چهارمین ماه، چشماندازها و گزینه‌های سیاست درست.
سخنان خانم مریم رجوی، مایک پومپئو، فرماندار گریلاک، فرماندار سام برانبک، ژنرال جکین و خانم لیندا چاوز.
رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت: قیامی که در ایران جاری است قطعاً به سرنگونی استبداد مذهبی خواهد انجامید که دنیا را خواهد لرزاند.
زمان آن رسیده که دولت‌های غرب نبرد مردم ایران برای سرنگونی رژیم آخوندی را به رسمیت بشناسند. سفارتخانه‌ها و مؤسسات وابسته به رژیم باید تعطیل و مزدوران اخراج شوند. هر نوع مذاکره و امتیاز دادن به حاکمان جنایتکار ایران بایستی قطع شود.
مایک پومپئو: آنچه در ایران در جریان است انقلابی است برای آزادی و استقرار یک جمهوری دموکراتیک. ایران هرگز به دیکتاتوری گذشته بر نخواهد گشت.
مایک پومپئو: کانون‌های شورشی منبع انگیزش مردم ایران هستند. آنچه در این 3 ماه گذشته در ایران اتفاق افتاده است حاصل یک مقاومت 40 ساله و پرداخت بها در این سالیان بوده است که اکنون در قیام مردم ایران متبلور شده است.
گریلاک، فرماندار سابق واشنگتن و وزیر بازرگانی: برنامه 10 ماده‌ای خانم مریم رجوی پایه یک جامعه آزاد و عادلانه است و مورد حمایت 250 نماینده مردم آمریکا از هر 2 حزب قرار گرفته است.
لیندا چاوز: من افتخار دارم که با خانم مریم رجوی آشنا هستم و شاهد مبارزه و رهبری این مقاومت توسط او بودم. او یک رهبر ویژه است. مردم ایران باید حق داشته باشند آنطور که می‌خواهند رهبران خود را انتخاب کنند. این بخشی از برنامه 10 ماده خانم رجوی برای ایران آینده است.
سناتور سام برانبک، فرماندار پیشین کانزاس: روزهای رژیم ایران به شمارش افتاده و سرنگون خواهد شد. اینک مقاومت سازمان یافته و قدرتمندی وجود دارد که به هیچ وجه عقب نمی نشیند. این بسیار امید بخش است.
ژنرال جکین: هدف قیام ایران این است: آخوندها باید بروند. این رژیم باید پایان یابد. مردم دیکتاتوری آخوندها و دیکتاتوری شاه را نمی‌خواهند، بلکه خواهان یک حکومت دموکراتیک به رهبری مریم رجوی هستند.
روز شنبه 26 آذر کنفرانسی در واشنگتن با حضور شخصیت‌های برجسته آمریکایی و نمایندگان جوامع انجمن‌های ایرانیان مقیم آمریکا در حمایت از قیام مردم ایران برای یک جمهوری دموکراتیک و آزاد برگزار شد و خانم مریم رجوی با ویدیو کنفرانس سخنرانی کردند. مایک پومپئو، وزیر خارجه آمریکا تا ژانویه 2021، گریلاک، دموکرات، فرماندار سابق ایالت واشنگتن، وزیر سابق تجارت و سفیر سابق آمریکا در چین، سام برانبک، فرماندار و سناتور سابق ایالت کانزاس و سفیر ویژه آمریکا در امور آزادی مذاهب، ژنرال جکین، معاون سابق رئیس ستاد نیروی زمینی ارتش آمریکا و خانم لیندا چاوز، مدیر سابق دفتر روابط عمومی کاخ سفید، در میان سخنرانان این کنفرانس بودند.
شهیدان پاکان قسم، رزماوران و دلیران قسم، به مهر فروزنده انقلاب تابیده بر خلق ایران قسم، به دست پر از سینه کارگر، به پای پر از زخم دهقان قسم، به تاپ آزادی توده ها به جنگی با خون و ایمان قسم. به اشکی که از دیده مادران چکیده به مرگ عزیزان قسم، به چشم زنانی که در مرگ شوی به سر برده تا صبح گریان قسم، به آه دل خسته بیوه زن، به اشک یتیم هراسان قسم، که تا صبح آزادی گونه ها به جنگی با خون و ایمان قسم.
Supporters of the Iranian resistance and freedom-loving Iranians. My sincere greetings to every one of you. Today, one can see everywhere the light of the flames created by the suffering of tortured prisoners, the pain of the martyrs' parents, and the battle of fearless rebels. The current uprising in Iran is one of the world's most important developments in 2022. These uprisings will certainly lead to the overthrow of the religious tyranny that will shake the world. It has been exactly 94 days since the uprising started. During this period, the regime killed more than 700 protesters in the streets and arrested at least 30,000 people. Last week, they committed another crime by executing 2 protesters. However, these crimes cannot stop the uprising. In contrast, the uprisings have become more focused on overthrowing the regime, and a large part of the population has joined the movement. Death to Khamenei can be heard everywhere, indicating the public's desire to overthrow the regime. High school students have joined the revolution, and the women participating in the protests chant, "With hijab or without hijab, let us all go for a revolution." Today, the regime has no social or political solution to offer, even if it intensifies the repression or continues with the present level of suppression. In any case, it cannot return to the power balance before the uprising and shall be overthrown. In fact, the Iranian uprising has deep roots in 4 decades of people's resistance against this regime. The participating protesters are deeply aware and see a bright future ahead of them. 4 decades of selfless resistance against the mullah's religious dictatorship has created a progressive culture of struggle. 120,000 who laid down their lives for freedom, including 30,000 political prisoners massacred in 1988. Hundreds of thousands of tortured prisoners, tens of thousands of freedom-loving women imprisoned, tortured, or killed in the struggle against this regime. The long-term perseverance of an organized movement on its principles, drawing the line with the former and current dictatorships and defending the Iranian people's freedom and sovereignty are the roots of today's glorious uprising in Iran. The activities of the MEK resistance units in recent years, despite numerous arrests and blows, have affected the activities of rebellious youth in these months. Dear friends, a significant change is in the making in Iran. It is time for Western governments to change their policy toward Iran. They should recognize the Iranian people's right to resist and defend themselves against the brutal repression of the religious dictatorship. Today, we are not only saying that the world is suffering from terrorism, war, and insecurity because of the religious tyranny in Iran, but that Iran's uprising and revolution have a gift for the Middle East and the world, which is peace, friendship, and peaceful coexistence. Fortunately, in the United States, members of the House of Representatives and the Senate have expressed their sincere and bipartisan support for Iran's uprising. In Canada, Australia, and Europe, public opinion and parliaments have also supported the Iranian people. In such circumstances, the regime would do everything to prevent the US from providing practical support to the uprisings. Unfortunately, the US diplomacy is trying to observe Khamenei's red lines by adopting double standards. In its media approach, the US blames the regime's repression and expresses mild sympathy with part of the protests. In practical policy, however, they try to reach an agreement, while Khamenei, in his public speech, rejects any form of agreement on the nuclear program. He leaves the doors open to secretly exchange messages through mediators. He ensures that nuclear negotiations with the P5+1 group continue because the regime needs to continue the talks with the West to confront the uprisings. The time has come for Western governments to end this policy and listen to the voice of the Iranian people and resistance who have kept the flame of resistance for freedom alight for 4 decades by paying the heaviest price. Every day for the past 3 months, we have heard this cry from the streets of many Iranian cities that we are moving toward the regime's overthrow. So it is time for the US and all Western governments to support the Iranian people's struggle for regime change. A few days ago, the majority of the ECOSOC voted to expel the Mullah's regime from the UN Commission on the Status of Women. We welcome this decision. This illegitimate regime does not represent the people of Iran in any way and must be shunned by the international community and expelled from the United Nations and its various agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, the US designated the IRGC as a terrorist entity, which the Western world should do now. More importantly, the time has come for the United States to recognize the legitimacy of the fight of the Iranian youth against this evil and terrorist force. The US should officially recognize the Iranian people's revolution to establish a republic based on democratic values. Embassies and institutions affiliated with the regime that provide support for repression inside Iran must be shut down. Any form of negotiation and making concessions to the criminal rulers of Iran should be stopped. Iran's people have reason to defeat the monster of repression and terrorism. They have chosen to pay the price of freedom with their blood. May the world rise in solidarity. Thank you all.
در کنفرانس واشنگتن، مایک پومپئو وزیر خارجه پیشین آمریکا طی یک سخنرانی تصریح کرد آنچه در ایران در جریان است انقلابی است برای آزادی و استقرار یک جمهوری دموکراتیک و ایران هرگز به دیکتاتوری گذشته بر نخواهد گشت.
But worthy missions almost always require this. What the regime doesn't understand is that these aren't just protests. This is in fact a revolution in the making. It is organized. It is organized. It's powerful. It's bigger than any one of us. It is remarkable to watch their courage. It's remarkable, too, to note they're not calling for simple reforms, although that's necessary and appropriate. They're calling for freedom. They're calling for a regime that fundamentally treats its citizens in different ways. They want a democratic, secular, and free republic devoid of any kind of dictatorship. They are now you should watch. Now you should watch. Now you should want, because Tehran wants to discredit the protesters by painting them as driven by foreign agitators. It is not so. They're saying that adherents are advocating for the return of others, of other dictatorships. This is not so either. They want freedom. These propaganda.
پومپئو نقش کانون‌های شورشی را ستود و آنان را منبع انگیزش مردم ایران توصیف کرد. وزیر خارجه آمریکا تا سال 2021 گفت آنچه در این 3 ماه گذشته در ایران اتفاق افتاده است حاصل یک مقاومت 40 ساله و پرداخت بها در این سالیان بوده است که اکنون در قیام مردم ایران متبلور شده است.
The resistance units in Iran, those noble Iranian patriots were as strong as they had ever been. They were as strong as they had ever been. Their optimism was increased, and justifiably so. 40 years of work, 40 years of resistance against the regime's brutal repression have now come to a head. I can feel it. You can see it. The world can see it. The movement we are seeing today is clearly different than what has happened before. The Ayatollah can see it too. The uprisings led by women, spearheaded by Iranian youth, make old guys like me feel really bad.
وی افزود رژیم ایران بی‌رحم، فاسد و بزدل است. جنایتکارانی مانند رئیسی که مرتکب جنایات در حق مردم ایران شده است، الان در رأس حکومت است. این رژیم جلاد در برابر قیامی که 90 روز از جریان دارد از همکنون شکست خورده است. رژیم در خطرناکترین نقطه خود قرار دارد. این رژیم تضعیف شده و طی 5 سال گذشته اکنون به یک سرفصل رسیده است. قیام که با پیشتازی زنان و حضور فعال جوانان جریان دارد، خواستار اصلاحات در این رژیم نیستند. آنها خواهان یک جمهوری دموکراتیک و آزاد هستند.
The regime reaps a harvest of suffering and death in the Middle East at the expense of its own citizens. The regime is headed by the Ayatollah, Ibrahim Raisi, and the IRGC. It is revolutionary in its efforts and in its zeal. It is brutal. It is theocratic. It is craven and kleptocratic too. Its leaders have killed their own by the thousands. The butchers, the very butchers who have committed the greatest atrocities, men like Raisi, find themselves first in line for leadership roles because they are willing to kill thousands more. And they have demonstrated that. Its leaders can shoot down a civilian airliner, killing hundreds of civilians, and think nothing of denying it to the world. There can be no hope. There can be no hope to moderate or cooperate with a regime led by such men. You should know that one of the great fights inside the United States government is the absence of understanding it. That very conceit. And now the regime, 40 years on, is at its most uncertain point ever. Iranians, not just in Tehran, but indeed from every corner of the nation, can see the failure of the regime to deliver on the promise that the regime itself made. Its epic incompetence ruined a nation. Its ineptitude led to an airliner being shut down with hundreds of innocent civilians aboard. It has made food, gas, basic staples unaffordable for ordinary Iranians. It is no secret to anyone that President Raisi is not the president of the people of Iran. He is the servant of an ideology and of the Ayatollah. And Raisi's mission is clear: inflict pain, frighten, loot, plunder the wealth of the Iranian people, butcher them if you must, maintain power at all costs. But you know this. He has already failed. He's failed to crush uprisings now 90 days on, and he has certainly failed to break the noble spirit of dissent with the Iranian people. He will not break it.
گریلاک وزیر بازرگانی آمریکا تا 2011 و فرماندار سابق واشنگتن گفت برنامه 10 ماده‌ای خانم مریم رجوی پایه یک جامعه آزاد و عادلانه است و مورد حمایت 250 نماینده مردم آمریکا از هر دو حزب قرار گرفته است. شما قیامی قهرمانانه در مقابل رژیمی فاسد و سرکوبگر و تروریست را به پیش میبرید. مردم آمریکا با مردم ایران همبستگی کامل دارند. دموکراسی ها باید از اپوزیسیون و مقاومتی که نقشی حیاتی در مقابله با اقدامات سرکوبگرانه رژیم ایران دارد حمایت کنند. مردم ایران مستحق دولتی هستند که دموکراسی و حکومت قانون را محترم بشمارد.
And I must say it is a special honor and a privilege to follow Mrs. Meriem Rejvi, President-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. She has put forth a 10-point plan for a democratic Iran, which includes being governed by a rule of law, which is so fundamental to a free and just society. And this plan has been endorsed by more than 250 Democrats and Republicans in the U.S. Congress. You are waging a heroic uprising against a corrupt and brutal regime. The Iranian people deserve a government that respects democratic norms, rule of law, and places the needs, the dreams, and the aspirations of the Iranian people above repression at home and terrorism abroad.
گریلاک افزود سازمان اصلی اپوزیسیون مجاهدین خلق اسامی 580 قیام کننده را اعلام کرده است که توسط رژیم کشته شدند که شامل 60 کودک می شود. این قیام که زنان و جوانان پیشاهنگ آن بودند تبدیل به یک فریاد واحد برای تغییر رژیم و حصول دموکراسی شده است. سازمان‌های بین‌المللی مانند سازمان ملل و دادگاه جهانی باید رهبران رژیم ایران را به خاطر چند دهه جنایت علیه بشریت مورد بازخواست قرار دهند. مردم ایران بهای سنگینی در مقاومت علیه دو دیکتاتوری شاه و شیخ پرداختند. در قتل عام سال 1367 30,000 زندانی سیاسی اعدام شدند که اغلب به جنبش اصلی اپوزیسیون مجاهدین خلق وابسته بودند. جامعه جهانی باید در کنار مردم ایران در مبارزه قهرمانانه‌شان برای آزادی و دموکراسی قرار گیرد.
The main opposition group, the MEK, has released the names of 580 protesters killed. Including more than 60 children. The current protests, spearheaded by women and young people, now joined by men, have transformed into a universal call for regime change and democracy. From the Kurds to the Arabs, from the Baluchis to the various nationalities and ethnicities, and among the followers of the various religions, all want a free republic based on separation of religion and state. The people of Iran have paid a heavy price in their resistance against two dictatorships, the Shah and the current regime. Never again can there be a return to such dictatorship, and the international community must instead side with the Iranian people in their heroic struggle for freedom and democracy.
Madam Mariam Rejui.
لیندا چاوز مدیر پیشین روابط عمومی کاخ سفید در کنفرانس واشنگتن گفت: من افتخار دارم که با خانم مریم رجوی آشنا هستم و شاهد مبارزه‌اش و رهبری این مقاومت توسط او بودم. او یک رهبر ویژه است. ما باید دنبال یک تغییر اساسی در سیاست‌های پایتخت‌های مختلف جهان از جمله آمریکا در قبال ایران باشیم. مردم ایران باید حق داشته باشند آنطور که می‌خواهند رهبران خود را انتخاب کنند. این بخشی از برنامه 10 ماده‌ای خانم رجوی برای ایران آینده است.
Madam Mariam Rejui has been a leader of this movement for a very long time, and I have been privileged, as I know many of you have, to be with her on many occasions, to hear her talk about her belief in the people of Iran and her fight against a regime that represses those people. The people of Iran have the right to choose their own leaders. They have the right to worship as they choose. They have the right to an independent judiciary. They have the right to make sure that they have a free press. These are all parts of Madam Rejui's 10-point plan for Iran. It can and should be the model for the future of Iran.
وی افزود: در این رژیم هیچ گزینه‌ای برای زندگی آزاد وجود ندارد. این رژیم می‌خواهد همه چیز را به مردم تحمیل کند. این یک اعتراض به فساد و شرایط اقتصادی یا حتی اعتراض به پلیس اخلاق نیست. مردم خواهان تغییر رژیم هستند. ما باید سیاستی داشته باشیم که تنها یک هدف داشته باشد: اینکه خامنه‌ای و اوباشش کنار بروند و آزادی برای مردم ایران وجود داشته باشد.
This is not just a fight against inflation, higher prices, the inability to get paid if you happen to be a government worker or a teacher, the corruption that goes on, or even just a fight against things like the morality laws of the state. This is a fight that is much bigger, and the people who have taken to the streets are saying it loud and clear. They want regime change. They want the Ayatollahs out.
سناتور سام براونبک، سفیر آمریکا برای آزادی مذاهب 2021، فرماندار آرکانزاس 2018، سخنران بعدی کنفرانس گفت: روزهای رژیم ایران به شمارش افتاده و سرنگون خواهد شد. اینک مقاومت سازمان یافته و قدرتمندی وجود دارد که به هیچ وجه عقب نمی نشیند. این بسیار امید بخش است. مذهب نمیتواند توسط هیچ حکومتی بر ملتی تحمیل شود. مردم ایران به زودی یک ایران دموکراتیک را که در حال متولد شدن است تشکیل خواهند داد. ما باید حامی مردم ایران باشیم و حق آنها برای سرنگونی دیکتاتوری مذهبی را به رسمیت بشناسیم.
For guys like me that have been working on these issues, this just get energized, and it makes you go when you can see that much courage standing up in the face of a regime that's willing to kill them and does kill people, and they're standing up there and being bold and brave and saying, no, we will not step down. We're going to fight. We're going to stay in this fight, and they're going to see it. And what happens then is the days of this regime are numbered and will soon be over. This kind of courage. Now what you see is an organized resistance that's broad-based, that's diversified, that's unified, that's powerful, and will not quit. This is a resistance that's going to win. Now, we need to support the Iranian people. We need to recognize their right to overthrow the dictatorship. We need to treat Tehran as a pariah state and isolate them economically, politically, and every way possible that we can. And we need to seize the moment. This really is it. There have been protests in the past. They haven't been near as strong as what this one is. This is the time. This is the place for us to do this. Let's grab it. Thank you very much. God bless you all. And let there be a free Iran.
Thank you, Frank. And that goal is the mullahs must go. The Islamic Republic must end.
ژنرال جکین معاون پیشین ستاد نیروی زمینی ارتش آمریکا گفت هدف قیام این است آخوندها باید بروند این رژیم باید پایان یابد مردم می‌دانند این رژیم توان هیچ اصلاحی ندارد و مردم هستند که باید حکومت را تغییر دهند مردم دیکتاتوری آخوندها و دیکتاتوری شاه را نمی‌خواهند بلکه خواهان یک حکومت دموکراتیک به رهبری مریم رجوی هستند
The people must change the government. The people want democracy, not the mullah's brutal theocracy, and not the Shah's authoritarian rule. The people, led by Maryam Rajavi, want a true democracy. This has been a long journey for 4 decades for the Iranian people.
وی افزود مماشات با دولتی که هزاران تن از مردم ایران را کشته معنا ندارد. دولت آمریکا باید سیاست جدیدی علیه این رژیم اتخاذ کند. متوقف کردن فوری مذاکرات اتمی با این رژیم. دولت بایدن باید از حق مردم ایران برای شورش و برای آزادی و دموکراسی حمایت کند. این یک انقلاب است و صرفاً یک جنبش اعتراضی نیست. مردم ایران به جهان نشان دادند که رژیم حاکم بر ایران هیچ مشروعیتی ندارد. هیچ حمایتی در میان مردم ندارد و آنها حاضرند همه چیز خود را برای نیل به آزادی بدهند.
The Biden administration should seize the opportunity to not only support the protesters but support their right to rebel against tyranny and aggression. Much as the American people did in the 18th century to gain our freedom. Yes, this is a revolution. It's not simply a protest movement.
هرگز اثر مددم